Hey guys, welcome to the 2020 Nissan Versa. This week I've been testing this car, put a few miles on it, and wanted to give you some thoughts on what it's been like to drive and live with. As you can see, this has the Xtronic CVT. We're also in an SV model, so we get Apple CarPlay. As spec'd, this car comes to around $21,000, including destination, and it has about $2,500 worth of options that I don't think you really need, but really the base MSRP on this SV is $17,600, which I think is actually quite reasonable. It's a small, lightweight, subcompact sedan. I think it looks pretty good with this new redesign. They've done some changes to update it to the modern Nissan design language with this front end. We have nice Continental tires. And a little trunk spoiler. Decent looking little car. I like the taillights. I like some of the changes they've made. It's a little bit dirty right now because I've been driving it all week, but it's actually pretty decent looking. So let's get into the review. Some things I really like about this car, some things I'm not so crazy about. Starting off, the only way you can open the trunk is either from the key when the car is off or from the latch next to the front driver's seat. I wish there was just a little button down here that you could pop the trunk with. Inside, though, you have a decent amount of space. Spare tire. Those seats fold down in a 60-40 split, but there's no way to fold them down from the trunk. You have to go into the back seat area and just pull these little knobs right here, and they come down nicely. Moving up into the back seat, we actually have an acceptable amount of room back here. I have room to put my feet under the front seats on both passenger and driver sides. Doesn't feel too claustrophobic back here. I have good visibility around me. There is no center armrest or anything, but the seats are soft, the cloth is nice and feels durable. And I think this is actually a pretty attractive looking interior. There's a lot of hard plastics, but the dashboard has this nice leather stitching, this white contrast that kind of matches the seat patterns here. And I think it looks pretty good. Your touch points are decent, except for maybe the steering wheel. It's a little bit rubbery, a little bit cheap feeling. But again, this is a $17,000 car. You're not going to get amazing trimming in something like this. We do have some faux carbon fiber plastics here on the door sills, but otherwise looks pretty good. You even have a couple USB ports here to charge mobile devices. And this is one optional extra here, is the center armrest. You get some coin slots in there and a little bit of space to store stuff, but honestly, not really a lot of storage in this car. That is one of my complaints. Even in the center console here with my iPhone 11, just the regular iPhone 11 Pro, not the big one, it's a little bit tight in there. A little bit of an indent here, smallish cup holders, and same with the door. But overall, you don't feel cramped in this cabin. It is a smaller space, but at 5'10", I feel pretty comfortable in here. 1.6 liter four-cylinder engine, makes 122 horsepower, and like I said earlier, it's mated to Nissan's Xtronic CVT. Tiny little engine, very fuel efficient, rated to about 40 mpg on the highway and around 30-31 in the city. All week I've been averaging, with mostly city driving, around 33 to 35 miles to the gallon. So I think you can very easily match or exceed the EPA estimates with this car, which is pretty cool. And the CVT helps a lot with saving gas. A lot of cool safety features too that come standard on this new Sentra. It does have a rear automatic braking. So the other day I was backing into a parking spot and trying to get as close as I could to the edge, and it just automatically brings you to a stop. That was me just there, but if it senses an object behind you, it'll come to a pretty abrupt stop, which is kind of neat. Also has forward collision avoidance, blind spot monitoring systems, and a host of other safety features that come standard on the new Versa, which I think is nice. They're not intrusive. You can turn everything on and off. You can adjust sensitivities in the menus here, and there's a lot of neat adjustability. You do have a nice digital display here to the left of your gauge cluster. You can see lots of different things like RPM, your audio, your eco meters, fuel economy history, stuff like that, as well as just your general coolant temp and settings and stuff like that. We'll leave it on the tachometer gauge for now. Decent audio system. We're going to do an audio test a little bit later in this video. I'm actually quite impressed with the sound quality. It sounds really good at low to medium volumes, and of course we'll use our traditional sound test tracks for that. Apple CarPlay is pretty responsive. Really no complaints there with usability and how it functions. We have, go back to the Nissan Infotainment here. It seems like Apple CarPlay is a little bit more responsive than the internal Nissan stuff going on here, but honestly, that's really all you need. It is a little bit of a shame, though, that they only offer Apple CarPlay in the top 2 trims. You can't get this with a base manual transmission, which is what I would go for, and to get Apple CarPlay. So let's talk a little bit about the CVT. Nissan's done quite a bit of work to improve the driving experience with this latest generation of the Xtronic. The first thing that I've noticed is that you actually get a pretty decent amount of acceleration from a stop. One of my biggest complaints with CVTs have always been they're just too sluggish off the line. They almost seem like you feel a little bit hesitant to take off quickly and get into traffic. But that's not the case here. You still get a little bit of that rubber band effect when you're accelerating, but unless if you're actually absolutely hammering it, it's pretty quiet and pretty in the background as far as noticing that this is a CVT as opposed to a traditional automatic. There are some inherent advantages to having a CVT, and there are some disadvantages. One of the advantages is that they work well with low power, smaller engines. There's a little bit less drivetrain loss with the CVT, and you get to put your power down just a little bit more. The 122 horsepower in this Versa, it's not quick by any means, it's not necessarily fun to drive, but it does put its power down quite well, and it has an adequate amount of acceleration. I don't feel like I'm wanting for just basic acceleration onto the highway or onto on-ramps, etc. Once you get going, it's very smooth, very seamless, and really quiet. It does a good job keeping the revs in the lower RPM range and maintaining your speed nicely that way. So it's not really making a lot of noise, there's no drone, and you'll notice that the CVT simulates gear changes to make it feel a little bit more like a traditional automatic. Overall, it's a quiet, smooth, comfortable drivetrain, and not sporty by any stretch of the imagination, but it is efficient and it is smooth. And that kind of carries on with the rest of the character of this new Versa. It's a comfortable appliance. This is a car that gets you from A to B relatively comfortably, cheaply, and with a lot of efficiency. You have nice visibility. You can see really well around you. All of the lines here at the door sills are relatively low, and I like that. You even have blind spot monitoring in the mirrors, and I like that you can easily see around in this car, and this also being a sedan helps a little bit with that. All of the controls and everything are pretty easy to figure out. I do wish we had some more automatic climate control in this car. These are just the old traditional knobs and buttons, but the climate control system is, you can operate this without even looking, and that's really nice. You don't have to go into menus or anything, and that is one thing. I had the Nissan Leaf last week, and I really appreciated how simple and easy it was to operate all the buttons and the controls. Everything came to hand intuitively, and it was pretty easy to live with. Let's go onto the highway here, and we'll get a little bit of an acceleration test and see how this Versa does around some corners. Hear those simulated shifts there. hard to tell with these microphones that I use, these binaural microphones, but there actually isn't a lot of wind noise in this Versa. We're going 70 miles an hour right now, and not getting a lot of cabin intrusion, not getting a lot of noise from these trucks here. It's pretty quiet in this cabin for the category of car that we're in. Nissan's done a nice job reducing wind noise and fine-tuning the sound levels in this cabin. The ride quality is really nice. It's not sporty, it's not overly comfortable and overly plush. It's a nice balance in between, acceptable amount of handling and grip, but it's definitely a more comfort-oriented suspension, which and it rides just fine over potholes. Sometimes it gets a little bit out of sorts and a little bit upset when cornering and you hit a larger bump or undulation in the pavement. It'll tend to kind of sidestep around the corner, but it's not a huge deal. And one thing that this Versa does have going for it is it comes in around 2,700 pounds Kerb weight, and that's pretty lightweight. That's lighter than a Subaru BRZ, for example, and you do get a little bit of that lightweight, small car, slow car, fast thing with this when you really start to push it at its limits. It does have pretty decent grip limits, and hopefully we can explore some of those on this entrance ramp up here. While we're waiting, let's go in and do a little bit of a sound test. So we have our track. I'm really impressed with this audio system. It's clear at low to medium volumes. Once you start to really crank it and turn it up, you hear some weakness in the bass and the overall output, but for normal volume levels, it sounds awesome. Miles ahead of the Volkswagen Jetta that I tested a few months ago. Alright, let's hit this entrance ramp here. We'll turn the volume down so you can hear this 1.6 liter engine scream. There's a good amount of mechanical grip here. I mean, you can feel a lightness. The steering weight's up nicely around corners. I have a pretty good idea of what the front tires are doing based on their noise and communication through the front wheels. Cruise control is easy to set and increase speed. The brake pedal is firm. Windows are fogging up here, so we're going to turn on the heat a little bit. Let's hear our next track here. There are definitely some pleasant surprises with this new Versa. I think it's about, you get what you pay for in this segment, and I think with time you've been getting more and more and more, and this is a little bit of a testament to that. It's probably not my top pick in this segment. For $21,000, I'd rather get a Corolla, or maybe even a I don't know, I'd actually probably just default to Corolla or something used that's a little bit nicer. But for what it is, this Versa does a pretty nice job. The CVT is one of the better ones that I've driven from Nissan. They've done some good work improving it. It's very in the background. It's not whirring away at you all the time. Time will tell with its reliability. But it's a very nice engine-transmission pairing. I'd be really curious to drive the manual transmission with this car, because I think that would actually be a little bit fun. And I'd be curious to see if Nissan comes out with any sporty iterations of this Versa. Because this paired with the manual might actually be a decent little daily driver sedan. Got some rough pavement here. does a pretty good job over bumps. There's not a lot of cabin noise, not a lot of intrusion. No rattles in this car whatsoever. This dashboard is very solid. You get some hard edges here on the injection molded plastics for the turn signal indicators and things. And, there are some spots in the interior where you can see where costs have been cut. But overall, this is a nice place to be. It's been an easy car to live with and daily drive. And I think you'd get some pretty impressive fuel economy numbers. If you were trying, you could probably pretty easily average 38 to 40 miles to the gallon in combined driving with this car. But I think all of the important marks Nissan has hit here with this Versa. It looks good, it's comfortable, it's practical, it's efficient. I do wish they offered the entertainment, the Apple CarPlay with the manual transmission. The headlights are a little bit dim. They leave a little bit of brightness to be desired. You do get automatic high beams in this car, which is kind of cool. But again, do you really need it in something in this class? I would argue not. Yeah, look at those. Look at that underglow. You do get some super bright interior lights. They make everything look kind of yellowish, but they do illuminate the front seats pretty well. Nothing in the back, but there isn't a whole lot back there to illuminate. And of course, as you can see here, you can pop the rear trunk from the key fob, but only when the car is off. All right, Nissan Versa. I think that pretty much sums it up. Thanks for tuning in again, guys. We'll see you later this week with a BMW X3 review and some more going forward. This is kind of 2020 is the year where we're filling in some gaps of manufacturers and vehicles that we have been covering in the past on this channel and on Winding Road. So we're looking forward to bringing you more from brands like Nissan, from BMW, and some of the other European brands that we just haven't been covering or been able to get press cars with in the past. So thanks again for watching. We'll see you guys later.